Let's get on to the world of politics. Santorum has said off the top, he's out, suspending his campaign today, clearing the way for Romney's now seemingly inevitable nomination.
While this presidential race for us is over, for me, we are not done fighting. This was a time for prayer and thought over this past weekend, and just like it was, frankly, when we decided to get into this race. Miracle after miracle, this race was as improbable as any race that you will ever see for president.
Well, joining us tonight to talk about not just that, but beyond that world of politics, Dick Brennan, political journalist and columnist, Congresswoman Nita Lowey, Democrat from New York, and our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. And was this really about the daughter's health, or was this, Andrew, more about math here? There was an inevitability, it seemed, that this day was coming.
Well, I mean, there had been talk even before word of Santorum's daughter's condition really elevated that Santorum was going to get out in advance of the Pennsylvania primary. Really didn't want to get hit at home. And he's got his own future to think about. So, how far down did he want to go in terms of trying to defend himself in Pennsylvania, which was seemingly starting to become a task he wasn't going to overcome. The polls were starting to turn against him. Mm-hmm. So it would be easy enough to suggest it was a combination of family issues, but also the political. And
also, we're hearing that Gingrich is going to stay through to the convention for whatever that's worth. But Dick, walk me through here. But apparently there's some calls here for Santorum to try and endorse Romney sooner than later. Can they really rally around here, this candidate, or has it been such a bruising campaign? We'll get into poll numbers in a minute here, that the damage has been done for the Republicans in the primary process.
Well, two things. First of all, they will rally around whether they like it or not, and we all know that there was a lot of bruising going on. But the Congresswoman can tell you that's politics, folks, and in the end, they'll all have to get together. Very interesting, though, that he did not even mention Romney's name in his speech. Never even said that. So there is some sort of bitterness. Now, as far as can they hit the reset button with the Etch-a-Sketch? Well, guess what? That's what they're going to do now. I believe that the Romney campaign, and this is what we're hearing from some in the Romney campaign, is that they feel that a lot of people, particularly in the independent states in the Midwest, haven't even really seen who he is or know what he's all about. They're hoping that's the case, that they get the chance, we're going to reintroduce him and perhaps make the sale, they hope.
Congressman, a couple months ago, I mean, this thing's had so many twists and turns. At one point, Gingrich said that he was the inevitable nominee. He always would say that. But then we really thought that there was a possibility Santorum could pick up the momentum and really go with it. Who was the Democrats' worst nightmare as a general opponent for the president?
Well, I really think that Romney will be the candidate, so that's the reality. And Romney has so many different positions on so many different issues. He's about 19 points, I understand, behind with women in the national polls. And how he'll make that up remains to be seen. I think the election really is about President Obama and his support, and Romney will be the alternative. But given the bruising campaign that went on with Gingrich and Santorum, I think it's very, very difficult.
Some people said it was the same, hey, 4 years ago, Hillary and Obama had a bruising primary process, but you don't think it's the same thing as to what Romney and the folks on the GOP side have gone through?
My recollection, and maybe I try and wipe out some of the negativity, was that it wasn't quite as bruising. I mean, Newt Gingrich was really tough on Romney, and Santorum was really tough on Romney. I went to an event, I'm all over my district, and I was in one of the communities, and one of the comedians got up and said, "What's the difference between Romney and a statue of Romney?"
I'm not going to jump on the punchline. Go ahead, yeah.
And I never remember a joke. A statue can't change positions.
Oh, okay.
So, and this was in one of the up-county communities.
But she's got 2 shows on Saturday, Andrew, yeah.
And she'll be here all week. Yeah. But keep in mind, the criticism from the other Republicans against Mitt Romney was that he's not a real conservative, he's not conservative enough, he's not to the right enough. That implies that he's more of a moderate than he may actually be in the objective sense of things. So, all of these people saying he's not conservative enough may help Romney later on.
Let's do the demos now, because the Congresswoman talked about women, and we're going to get into those numbers later, but we have new polls out, Andrew, that show where Obama and Romney are. I know it's early on, we're only April here, but give a breakdown for the audience what we've learned.
Well, let's go through the numbers, and we'll start with first up the heads up, and you see it's 51-44 among registered voters. The lead is even larger among all voters. And if we go to independent voters, it's 48-46 for Romney right now. That's an area of potential concern for the president. On the economy, another area of concern for President Obama. Who do you trust to handle the economy? Romney with a 4-point advantage there in the latest Washington Post ABC News poll. And do we have another one?
No.
Nope, that's it.
We'll get into
there.
the gender breakdown next. But for me, I was a little surprised, Dick, to see those numbers because for all the hits that Romney's taken is being a little bit out of touch, certainly whether it's his tax returns or that his past at Bain here was a guy who let go of folks more than certainly employed them. The public is at least divided on this and potentially maybe even says, you know what, I'm not how crazy how things have gone for the past 4 years. Maybe an alternative wouldn't be so bad.
I think the big problem there is the gap with women, because whatever you say about a national versus a state poll, that's one thing. National polls really don't mean a lot because we all know this election is going to be settled in maybe 5 to 10 states among 10% of the people in those independent states. And let's face it, we're a 50-50 country, and it appears that no matter how this shakes out, it's going to go right down to the wire. I always remember the old Richard Nixon line, which is run for president as if you're running for governor of Ohio, because that's where it's going to land in the end. And we may land there in the end. The only problem is if it lands in Michigan, after what Romney was, the bailout worked out very well for the president there, and it could all change, ironically, on the bailout, which was so unpopular 4 years ago.
I thought he was going to say, I'm not a crook. I thought that's where he's going.
And the other point that I think would be very interesting, of course, now we know it's going to be Romney, and we know the health care program that the Congress passed was implemented in Massachusetts and doing very well. So is he going to change positions? Is he still going to call it Obamacare when he's so identified with the plan in Massachusetts?